88.5 FM Ibadan. Good evening, this is Oluyole Asende. Reading with me is
Adetuke Olale.
Bringing you News Scope, our daily news program of in-depth reports, interviews and commentaries. First, the highlight. APM's new presidential candidate, Governor Makinde, promises massive multi-sectoral reforms.
Former President Jonathan emerges PDP flag bearer.
NGF proposes no national minimum wage.
4 rescued from 10 days from flooded cave in Thailand.
And now the details. The Allied People's Movement, APM, has unveiled Oyo State Governor Engineer Seyi Makinde as its presidential candidate for the 2027 general election under the APM-PDP alliance. Governor Makinde emerged as the party's consensus candidate during a presidential primary and unveiling ceremony held in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Details of the event covered by the governor's office correspondent Oluyole Sulaiman, presented by Agbada O Gbona, will be brought to you before the end of the news.
In the meantime, governorship candidate of Allied People's Movement (APM) in Ogun State, Rotimi Babajide, has pledged to run an all-inclusive, transparent and people-driven administration if elected governor of the state in the 2027 elections. Babajide, a town planning expert, said governance must be anchored on broad participation, accountability and shared prosperity. He stated this shortly after emerging as the party's flag bearer. Outlining his vision for the state, the governorship candidate identified inclusive governance as the cornerstone of his administration, assuring residents that every citizen would have a sense of belonging regardless of political affiliation, ethnic background or social status. He called for issue-based campaigns and a collective commitment to the development of Ogun State, arguing that inclusive leadership remains the surest path to sustainable progress. Meanwhile, the state chairman of the party, Abayomi Sonyolu, expressed confidence that the APM would spring a surprise in the 2027 governorship election. He said electoral success would not be determined by financial strength or crowd size, but by the people's connection with the candidate and divine support.
The package and the details of the event covered by Governor's Office correspondent Oluyole Sulaiman, presented by Adebayo Abdulrofi, will be brought to you now.
The attention of members and supporters of the Allied People's Movement (APM) from across the country was focused on Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, as the party formally unveiled its consensus candidate for the 2027 presidential election, Engineer Seyi Makinde. Following his endorsement by APM chairmen from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory (FCT), Governor Makinde was officially presented as the party's presidential flag bearer. The governor was subsequently presented with a certificate of return and handed the party's flag by the national chairman of the APM, Dr. Yusuf Dantale, signifying his mandate to lead the party into the 2027 presidential election. In his acceptance speech, Engineer Seyi Makinde criticized aspects of the federal government's approach to security, food security, and the oil and gas sector, stressing the need for comprehensive reforms to address the nation's challenges. Governor Makinde stated that Nigeria requires a fresh direction and pledged that if elected, the safety and security of citizens will be treated as a national priority rather than a political issue. He assured Nigerians that his administration will focus on strengthening the security architecture and improving the welfare of the people.
A new direction must emerge. A new direction that is built on competence, courage, accountability, and compassion for the people of Nigeria. As governor of Oyo State, I the body of this law, the Chief Security Officer, yes, lacking constitutional control over the security agencies needed to fully confront this threat.
The APM presidential candidate also emphasized the need for far-reaching reforms in the oil and gas sector, noting that repositioning the industry will be critical to economic growth and national development.
Nigerians must be protected from arbitrary pricing and not have to bear the cost of the government failure to secure our wealth. I agree that NNPC will be reformed and become lean, efficient, and commercially driven through proper joint venture and institutional reform.
Delivering the welcome address, the APM governorship candidate in Oyo State, Dr. Bimbo Adekombi, expressed confidence in Governor Makinde's ability to replicate at the national level the developmental strides recorded in Oyo State. Earlier, the national chairman of the APM, Dr. Yusuf Dantale, described Governor Makinde as a courageous and visionary leader with the capacity to drive meaningful change across the country.
It is time to set the and direct the street of the nation to the path of gratitude, equity, morality, dignity, and prosperity.
In separate remarks, the governor of Bauchi State, Senator Bala Mohammed, represented by his deputy, Mohammed Jatau, and the APM governorship candidate in Lagos State, Mr. Laja Adeoye, expressed confidence in Makinde's ability to transform the fortunes of Nigeria if elected president. They noted that his leadership style, political experience, and governance record demonstrates the capacity to tackle the nation's challenges and promote sustainable development. The exercise was monitored by officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), led by Professor Sani Mohammed. Dignitaries at the event included the Oyo State Deputy Governor, Barrister Bayo Lawal, top government functionaries, political appointees, and other stakeholders, among them the chairman of the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, BCOS, Chief Mrs. Dotun Olaiton.
Meanwhile, a faction of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, led by Tani Mutaraki, today declared former President Goodluck Jonathan as its presidential candidate for the 2027 general elections. The decision was taken at a special national convention held at the faction's national secretariat in Abuja. Although former President Jonathan was not present at the event where his nomination was formally ratified, but a certificate of return was received on his behalf by Bayelsa lawmaker Fred Agbada. The development was announced during the gathering attended by delegates and party stakeholders aligned with the Turaki-led group.
The chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman Abdurrazak, said state governors are considering a new national minimum wage of 100,000 naira amid rise in economic hardship in the country. He disclosed this in a post today, noting that the proposal was driven by inflation, the rising cost of living, and mounting financial pressure on Nigerian workers. According to him, the state governments are engaging the federal government and organized labor to agree on a wage structure that balances workers' welfare with fiscal sustainability. The NGF chairman added that consultations were ongoing to ensure that any new wage regime would not place excessive financial strain on the states. He explained that the discussions focused on striking a balance between enhancing workers' purchasing power and preserving government's ability to deliver critical public services and infrastructure projects. He noted that while workers deserve the proper remuneration, policymakers must also consider the fiscal realities confronting the sub-national government.
least 37 people have died, while more than 3,000 cases of cholera have been recorded across 36 wards in 7 local government areas of Borno State in May. The Executive Secretary of the Borno State Contributory Healthcare Management Agency, Dr. Saleh Kaza, confirmed the figures in a statement, describing the outbreak as a serious public health emergency requiring urgent preventive measures. Kaza said the cases were recorded between May 1st and 29th of May, following the confirmation of the first infection earlier in the month. He added that in the last 24 hours, over 100 cases were reported, and over the last 29 days of May, Maiduguri Metropolitan Council has the highest incidence, recording more than 2,000 cases, followed by Jere with over 1,000. He called for urgent improvements in water, sanitation and hygiene practices, warning that open defecation and poor waste disposal were worsening the spread of the disease. The official also said plans were underway to roll out cholera vaccination in the state, but stressed that vaccination was not a substitute for proper hygiene practices.
This broadcast of Newscope comes to you from the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, Ibadan. Oyo State Governor Engineer Seyi Makinde has approved the appointment of Mrs. Adenike Ayobami Fashino as the new head of State Civil and Public Service. The appointment was announced in a press release issued by the outgoing head of service, Mrs. Olubumi Olufunkeumi. Mrs. Fashino, an indigene of Iruwa in Ibalakwa, his local government area, will assume leadership of the State Civil Service following the retirement of Mrs. Oni, who bows out upon attaining the mandatory retirement age in accordance with the excellent Civil and Public Service rules and regulation. Before her appointment, Mrs. Fashino served as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance. She joined the Oyo State Civil Service as a statistician 2 in 2000 and rose through the ranks. She is an alumnus of the National Institute for Strategic Studies and has received the State Merit and Productivity Award on 2 occasions. In a related development, Governor Makinde also approved the appointment of 20 executive secretaries and general managers across the Civil Public Service. Among those appointed is Mrs. Taiwo Adibowale, who has been named the General Manager of the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, BCOS.
Oyo State Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Inclusion, Honorable Toyin Balogun, has expressed deep concern and solidarity with families and communities affected by the recent kidnapping incidents in Oyo Information Officer Al-Aja Aminat Busari Adeleke. Honorable Toyin Balogun, alongside a delegation from the 5 Ogbomoso Zone local government and senior officials of Oyo local government, visited Yawota Esiele and Ogbomoso town to commiserate with the victims' families, traditional rulers, and community members impacted by the tragic incident. During the visit, the team engaged with the grieving families and met with several families whose spouses or children remain in the custody of the abductors, including vulnerable households with multiple underage children and infants affected by the incident. The commissioner's team, having observed that many widows and dependents of the victims are now left without means of livelihood, distributed relief materials and food items to support their immediate needs, while community leaders, including the Bale of Yawata, Pa James A.O. and the High Chief of Esiele, Tajuddin Abedin, were consulted during the visit. Honorable Balogun, while reiterating the government's commitment to supporting victims and strengthening community resilience in the aftermath of the attack, expressed optimism that ongoing efforts by Governor Seyi Makinde in collaboration with security agencies would lead to the safe return of all.
Stakeholders have called for intensified awareness campaigns, youth empowerment programs, and stronger support systems to combat the growing menace of human trafficking in Nigeria. They made the call while speaking with BCS News on the dangers of illegal migration and the exploitation of vulnerable persons. Our reporter, Folashade Akintola, completes the report.
Human trafficking remains one of the major social challenges confronting many families, particularly young people in search of greener pastures abroad. Experts say traffickers often prey on poverty, unemployment, and desperation, luring victims with false promises of better opportunities outside the country. Speaking with BCOS News, Mrs. Oluyole Ademola Aremu urged parents and guardians to be more vigilant and avoid falling victim to deceptive offers of jobs, education, and overseas opportunities. According to her, traffickers often disguise themselves as helpers while targeting vulnerable youths and children.
The first thing is to tell parents there are no free things. So most of the time, parents hope that somebody is considering their child for a better pasture. You are the best pasture for your child. Trafficking is somebody coming to you, give me your child, I'll treat your child better. If they are not under fostering, which is a legal term and will be accomplished in the court of law, it is negative. So we need to protect our children from hard labor.
Mrs. Ademola Aremu explained that many trafficked boys are forced into hard labor under hazardous conditions, while girls are frequently exposed to sexual exploitation and abuse. Speaking on support for victims and returnees, she noted that several organizations and non-governmental groups are currently providing rehabilitation services, including psychotherapy, medical care, counseling, and empowerment programs.
If your child is back from any form of trafficking, please give them the opportunity to go for medical checkup, because so many of them will not be able to tell you what they've been through. Especially their medical evaluation is very important. Now we move on to the next level of healing, which is psychotherapeutic, and of course following up and monitoring their welfare. I tell you, there is help available. Just reach out.
She further stressed the importance of rehabilitation and psychosocial support for returnees who may be battling trauma and emotional distress after their experience. Also speaking, the Oyo State Coordinator of the Child Protection Network, Mrs. Rosemary Odigbo, said human trafficking activities are often carried out secretly, making it difficult for community to detect early warning signs. Mrs. Odigbo will recount the case of a young girl believed to have traveled to London who was later discovered to have been trafficked to Libya. She emphasized the need for sustained awareness campaign in schools, religious centers, markets, and communities to educate young people on the tactics commonly used by traffickers.
These children need to be informed, because when the traffickers comes, they come with subtle way, because they know the economic situation of the country is somehow now, and so they will come with, you have get you a good job somewhere, and then with that the victim will just fall flat for such.
On support for victims, Mrs. Odigbo called for the establishment of a centralized government support system for returnees. She urged government at all levels to create sustainable empowerment opportunity for youths to reduce desperations and discourage irregular migrations.
Because most of the time when they are back, they are dejected, they are pained, they are sorrowed, they are withdrawn, they need psychosocial support, they need therapy, just name it. So there will be a central point, a desk point, where such victims or returnees will find themselves to be helped.
Mrs. Odigbo also advocated increased sensitizations through media campaigns, public enlightenment programs, and warning jingles to educate citizens on the dangers of human trafficking. Experts say tackling human trafficking requires collective actions involving government agencies, media organizations, civil society groups, religious institutions, traditional rulers, and members of the public. As awareness efforts continue, stakeholders maintain that youth empowerment, community education, and adequate support for victims remain critical steps toward ending human trafficking in Nigeria. Folashade Akintola, BCOS News.
On the following scene, 4 men were trapped inside a flooding cave in Laos in Thailand for 10 days have been rescued. Thailand rescuers says it comes a day after another man was rescued. Foreign Desk editor Folashade Akintola compiled the details and other stories as reported by Bimbo Akombi.
They were among 7 villagers who entered the narrow tunnel in search for gold but were cut off inside the cave in the remote mountain area of central Xisambon province after flash floods hit on 20th of May. Only 5 were found alive by rescuers on Wednesday. 2 men are still missing. The cave system, which extends deep underground, is also extremely narrow, with some chambers measuring only about 50 centimeters, that is about 20 inches wide, rescuers say. According to a post on the Thailand Rescue Driver Facebook page, the 4 men were successfully freed at about 15:10 local time on Saturday. It has not yet been disclosed exactly how the men were brought to safety. In an unverified video posted to one of the Thai rescue workers' social media accounts, a chorus of cheers could be heard coming from both searchers and onlookers as the 4 men gradually emerged from the cave. Ukraine has launched coordinated drone attacks on Russian energy infrastructure across multiple regions overnight. The most significant strike hit Taganrog and Rostov Oblast, where a major port fire broke out after drones hit a tanker, fuel tank, and administrative building, Russia's RIA Novosti state media agency reported. Early on Saturday, Rostov Governor Yuri Slyusa confirmed the attack on Max, a Russian state-backed messaging app. The attack also injured 2 civilians when a drone struck a private home in Tagarong. Tonight, civilians were injured again as a result of an airstrike on Tagarong, Slyusa said. According to preliminary information, 2 people were injured when a drone struck a private home. Medics are providing assistance and doing everything necessary. Slyusa added that Russian air defenses destroyed multiple drones overnight across 4 districts. Tagarong has been targeted multiple times in recent months. In late March 2026, a drone attack on the city killed 1 person and wounded 8 others, authorities said. Finally, an Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE agent charged with shooting a Venezuelan man during a controversial immigration raid in Minnesota has been arrested in Texas, according to United States authorities. Agent Christian Castro, 52, was taken into custody on Friday after investigators from Minnesota tracked him down in the southern state, where he was arrested with assistance from the Texas Rangers and the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General's office. He faces 4 counts of second-degree assault and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. The charges stem from the non-fatal shooting on January 14 of Julio Cesar Sosa Celis in Minneapolis during Operation Metro Surge, a large-scale immigration enforcement campaign that drew widespread criticism for its aggressive tactics. Prosecutors allege Castro fired through the front door of a resident, striking Sosa Celis in the leg. Minnesota officials welcomed Castro's arrest, saying federal agents should be held to the same legal standards as everyone else. Bimbo Akombi, BCUS News.
To end this edition of Newscope, here again are the main points. The Allied People's Movement APM has unveiled Oyo State Governor Engineer Sheyi Makinde as its presidential candidate for the 2027 general elections under the APM-PDP alliance.
A faction of the People's Democratic Party, led by Tanimu Turaki, today declared former President Goodluck Jonathan as its presidential candidate for the 2027 general election.
The chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, NGF, and Governor of Kwara State, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, said state governors are considering a new national minimum wage of 100,000 naira amid rising economic hardship in the country.
And on the foreign scene, 4 men were trapped inside the flooding cave in Laos in Thailand for 10 days had been rescued.
If you see something suspicious, alert the authorities immediately for timely response. Be vigilant. And that's all from Newscope Desk for now. It was packaged by Mary Adedakbo and delivered by
Adetoke Olaleye
and Galumi Asande. Thanks for listening. And do not forget to tune in for the able version at 8 p.m. Good evening.
rédíò tí ọlá fi wé Olúyọ̀lé FM àwa ni bàbá.
èyí àrà.
mo tún gbé dé èyí yàtọ̀ títún tí mo tún gbé dé.
ilé àkókò ni wọ́n ti ń gbẹ́dọ́ ìran àdàbà lónìí làálì ẹkú ti mọ̀ wá nílé akéde lánàá kó tó dòní níbi ká ṣètò tó mọ̀gàn wa lábala ìyí àrà fún tọ̀sẹ̀ yìí àwọn àgbà bọ̀ wọ́n ní jẹ́rọ wúwo lẹ́nu gàrí ò ṣeé gbé lọ́jà bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́bí bá kúrò nínú ìṣẹ́ ti bùṣe ǹjẹ́ oúnjẹ tọ̀ṣẹ̀ bí èyí lè bá wa dá sí ká tó kọjá lọ sábala téńté orí ìròyìn lórí ètò ìyí àrà fún tọ̀sẹ̀ yìí lábala àlejò wa náà lẹ́ẹ̀tì pàdé olùṣọ́ àgùntàn àti lọ́lá Victor Adéwálé ọ̀jìnì onímọ̀ nípa ètò ọ̀gbìn ni wọ́n tí wọ́n sì mọ bá wa dá sí ètò gbogbo kókó tẹ́ ẹ bá ń jù ú sí wọn lórí ọ̀rọ̀ àyájọ́ ọjọ́ ebi lágbàáyé àti ọ̀nà tó ń jẹ́ ó fi sùn wá bọ̀ láwùjọ wa ọ̀nà wo gan-an ló ń jẹ́ ó fi sùn wá bọ̀ lọ́pọ̀ yanturu ipa wo ni àwọn ẹgbẹ́ ń kó lọ́nà àtijẹ́ kóúnjẹ ó sùn wá bọ̀ lórílẹ̀‐èdè yìí ìjẹ́ àwọn ìjọba gan-an wọ́n ní ìrànlọ́wọ́ kankan tí wọ́n ń ṣe fáwọn àgbẹ̀ lórílẹ̀‐èdè yìí